Welcome back to Tate's Happy Hour.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
If you guys could see the takes for this.
You don't want to say you don't want nobody to ever see them?
No. Those can be kept
okay
in a private blooper
That's
room.
hilarious.
They're ridiculous. We've been away for a little while.
A little bit.
Hope y'all didn't forget about us. We're glad to be back.
They forgot.
Well, I hope
we got a new camera though.
We did.
More clear now.
And a ring light. Thanks, Mika.
Yeah, good looks.
So hopefully we can make up for lost weeks. We've had a lot going on, but want to make sure that we actually keep this up and stay on top of it. So this week.
Yeah, I'm not making up for nothing though. You get what you get. They ain't paying me. I'm giving them what they pay for.
We are unsponsored. If anybody knows of a sponsor who's looking for, interesting
That's
content.
When I give you more. Right now you get this.
So this week we are discussing something we have brought up in many of our previous episodes. Maybe everyone? Yeah. Vulnerability.
Were you waiting for me to say that?
I was.
Oh my bad. Vulnerability.
Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome. Got your back, son.
Anyway. This week we're talking about vulnerability. So we've mentioned it before and we spent a little time talking about it and we were like, I don't think that we learned how to be vulnerable with each other overnight.
Overnight? I don't think we learned how to be vulnerable over the first decade of our relationship.
No, we weren't good at this.
Most people aren't.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Why is it even important? Why does it matter?
Some people will tell you that it does not and you should never, because that's how you get hurt and you just drop the coaster.
I did. I dropped my coaster.
The bloopers just keep coming.
They do. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to cut this out.
Don't cut it out.
I am. We didn't tell you guys what we were drinking, but we will before the end of the episode.
Oh, yeah. Mine's are simple. You can tell them yours if you want, but mine's... You want to wait? Or you want to tell them now?
I mean, we're talking about it now, so I guess we can just run it back. We're a little out of practice. We can just run it back.
I told you, you're getting what you get.
I am drinking some of my favorite rum, El Dorado.
Whoa, calm down. They're not sponsoring. You ain't got to say it like that.
They aren't sponsoring, but it's still some of my favorite rum from my family's home country of Guyana. El Dorado 15-year aged. It is delicious, y'all.
You don't really got to mix it, but...
You don't. You can drink it straight. It's a little sweet. It has lots of layers of flavor. It is an amazing rum.
Again, not sponsoring us.
And I mixed it with Coke Zero. But, I don't remember what I was going to say. Okay. Oh, if you can get the 21-year aged, because your money run long.
Or if you get the 25.
You should do that.
Your money run real long. You can come by and be a guest on
You can. Come through.
Just as long as you bring the bottle.
Bring the bottle.
I'm drinking Sorrel and rum. I'm drinking Zaya rum, 12-year, because it's nice. It's not as good as El Dorado to me, but it's still a nice, smooth rum.
Does everyone know what Sorrel is?
If not, again, I'm not giving you more than what you paid for. So, vulnerability. Why is it important?
Wait, also, for the non-drinkers, next week, I'll be starting drinking some virgin drinks. So,
yeah. I will not.
Cheers to that. We'll have something special for the non-drinkers next week.
Yeah, we try to be mindful of you all, but I'm drinking a regular drink. She's going to be drinking non-alcoholic drinks.
He might join me. We'll see.
We'll see. Maybe.
All right. Why is it important?
Well, first and foremost, vulnerability. What is vulnerability? Maybe she's like, what is vulnerability?
Ooh, what is it?
I don't know.
We should have looked this up for the people.
Nah, vulnerability is... Well, I'll give my definition. You can look up Webster's.
You want a dictionary definition?
You can look up Webster's.
Okay.
I'll give mine. Vulnerability is giving the most inner parts of yourself descriptively to someone else without fear of anything. So like being able to give whatever it is that you keep to yourself to someone else. That's my definition. What Webster say?
So I actually really like this Webster definition, and I think we'll pivot to it a little bit later because I think it explains why we don't like to be vulnerable. So in terms of like war terminology, if you're vulnerable, then you are susceptible to being attacked, wounded, or hurt. You can also be open to criticism. This is Webster, y'all. But in the context of a relationship, I think what you said is exactly that. If we aren't open, which is the beginning of these definitions, then people can never really get to know us. We always have our guard up and we're always ready to defend. And that is really not conducive to a healthy relationship. So
True.
It is conducive to being safe, but healthy relationships
safe
aren't
and alone.
Always emotionally safe. So they should be emotionally safe spaces, but you've got to take some risk. So why is it important?
Well, first and foremost, if you're not being vulnerable, you're hiding a part of yourself from your partner. And if you're hiding a part of yourself from your partner, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that? What is it about yourself that you're afraid to show somebody else?
So I guess the first step is being vulnerable with yourself and figuring out what it is that you really need so you can ask for what you need in order to be more emotionally safe in that space. You have an opportunity to learn so much more about yourselves. And the more you know about yourselves, the more you can improve or address potential problems and issues, or if they do come to the forefront, you're not going to be as defensive because you've already identified that this is a problem. I'll give you an example. I can be a little bossy. He's a smart man.
Yeah, so that I ain't even changed expression. My expression was stoic.
I can be a little bossy, and I'm aware of that. And so, if he calls to my attention that, hey, you didn't really ask a question. Yeah, kind of told me what to do. Or, what was your objective with that question? Was it just to be passive aggressively bossy? I know that about myself. I have to eat that and go, you're right. That probably wasn't the best way to address that, but I've already been honest enough with myself to know that. Mm-hmm. As opposed to being like, what are you saying? I know what he's saying. Yeah. What else?
Because it's kind of like being vulnerable is like an introspective look into yourself and sharing that. So like, without that, I don't know how you get intimacy in your relationship, because if you're not sharing intimate things about yourself with your partner, where does intimacy begin? That was deep, right?
It's like a chicken or the egg situation, right? How do you get closer? Mm-hmm. How do you get intimate? How do you get romantic if nobody knows what you want? Yeah. If they haven't seen your inner self.
Yeah. Because if you're not being vulnerable, your partner can't possibly know what you need. They can guess. They'll never know what you need if you're not being vulnerable, because if you're not being vulnerable, they don't know anything, and you're just coexisting but not actually addressing anything and trying to be better for one another, because how can you be if you don't know anything?
So I really like this point that we came up with as we talked, and this thing that I think you're touching on right now. It develops a level of regular introspection that's important to healthy people in relationships. It allows you to Explain to your significant other why you are the way that you are,
Mhm.
but it also allows you to have a conversation about how to maybe get past some of the hurtful things, how to
Yeah.
address situations differently, or it can help your partner grow. Maybe you have found an amazing way to be emotionally intelligent and in tune in your relationship, and you can help your partner grow in that way. Um, but that will continue to build on that intimacy and trust when it's a safe space. Um, and I think probably we've touched on this a little bit, but it helps keep you from being triggered every time your partner says something that may just be a sore spot for you, and you're like, I hate that thing. And
And
they
you
don't know that you hate that
and
thing.
you're wilding with your response, and you
Isn't
don't
that
even know
crazy?
why, and they don't know why because you were not vulnerable.
And then you have this situation where their intent wasn't bad,
Mhm.
but it triggered you. And nobody knows what's going on. You're not even having a conversation about the thing. Now your conversation is going to be about the symptom of the thing,
Mhm.
but you're never going to get to the heart of the thing.
Right.
So why don't we do it if it's
Um,
so good?
we didn't cheers. I meant to cheers, and we didn't cheers.
We didn't. God, we are really just off our game, man.
Hey, first week back.
It's been like a month.
They get what they get. First week back.
Cheers.
It's like summer vacation when you come back young about everything.
That's true. That's true. Give ourselves a little grace. So why don't we do it?
First and foremost, some of us never have.
Hmm.
I was one of those people. I kept everything to myself.
So I agree. And I guess I'm thinking, why haven't some of us ever done that? And if I think about myself expressly, the world really teaches us to be strong. And now, if you are right, I think we can think of a few buckets. A friend of mine and I were talking about the strong black woman trope. There is the men need to be strong mantra that's out there. And
I never had a coach that didn't tell me to be strong and be a man.
yeah, if you're in
Never.
sports, you're always told to be strong, and then vulnerability is seen as a weakness. And so I don't know that many of us grew up thinking that vulnerability could even be a good thing. Now, I think strength absolutely has its place. There are times where you have to buck up
Mm-hmm.
and push through. Sports is probably one of those arenas. You can't just stay laying on the floor because you sprained your ankle a little bit. You shouldn't.
I mean, you can, but
you shouldn't.
The game gonna keep going.
The game's gonna keep going.
Come back to you later and be like, oh, time out.
Right. But there's also a place for vulnerability, and I think some of this has a lot to do with balance and knowing time and place for everything.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why people don't ascribe to being vulnerable. I mean, besides the being strong thing, it's like it's scary to be vulnerable because you never know what the other person's going to do with the information that you give them. And if you've been hurt in the past, it can be difficult to be vulnerable because you are coming from a place where your vulnerability was used against you in a way that ended up hurting you. But, I mean, that's everything, though. If you don't put yourself out there in life, you're not going to get anywhere.
That's fact. Everything is a risk, right? I don't think that there is any risk without reward. Sorry, that was my mom, and she overrides my do not disturb. She's one of my emergency contacts.
I'll just start finding you.
Anyway, yeah. So as kids, we learn this pretty quickly. I think. If anybody ever had unsafe experiences in their formative years, you learned really well how to hide yourself. And I can't think of a situation where, without a reason, we take the time to unlearn that behavior. And and just show up courageously and be seen. Um, I can definitely say that was a big deal for me. I had learned to put on I'm 4'9".
Oh yeah.
Okay. I am 4'9".
Wow.
And I can tell you, I remember conversations with my mom, and she would always say to me, people aren't going to respect you um, because of your height, because of your stature. They're going to treat you like a child. And this was my mom really trying to be helpful, and I appreciated her perspective. Um, but because of that, I always showed up a rather over the top strong. I can tell you, people at work have, when I've said to them, "You guys know I'm only 4'9". I can't reach that." And they were always like, "You're only 4'9"? I mean, in my head, you're like 5'6". And that's how I try to show up and present. Why I have learned that as a coping mechanism, because I anticipate that people won't respect me and treat me the way that I think I should be treated, especially in places of business. And this is me being vulnerable with you guys for a little bit, but that doesn't work in a relationship. My husband's 6'4", played sports all his life.
Whole life.
And so you can imagine we probably had lots of clashes that look ridiculous to any outsider, because what is this 4'9" person trying to tell this 6'4" man? But anytime that I even have an inkling of being disrespected, I'm a whole different person. But that's how I learned to protect myself.
Also, I'm not very disrespectful.
He's not.
So her responses sometimes would always have me looking at her like, I don't understand what this response is to, because I didn't say anything that I thought was crazy. But she wasn't as vulnerable at the time, so I didn't know that I was triggering her and things that I was doing.
So yeah, it's definitely scary. It's a bit unnatural. It was a bit unnatural for me to be vulnerable. I know I can sometimes have a pretty self-destructive internal dialogue. I judge myself pretty harshly. It's a very critical dialogue. Like, you said what? That was dumb. About little things, and often pretty wrong assumptions. And I feel that every time I'm vulnerable. And so it's really scary. It's scary to be vulnerable still. In my relationships with my friends, my romantic relationship here with my husband, even with my family, it's scary.
Yeah. I mean, because there's also the layer of it that is like, what, this person doesn't understand what I'm saying, and they think I'm crazy or something. Because I think that was a big part of the reason why I didn't share a lot, because I felt like my thoughts were so crazy. It's like, you can't say that out loud. They're gonna try to put you in the psych ward.
And yet, I was having some of the same thoughts.
They just would put both of us in the psych ward.
Locked up.
Doing this.
As long as we locked up together.
This podcast in straight jackets, padded rooms. Why else? Is there anything else?
I mean, I think that pretty much covers the bulk of what I can think of. I'm sure there are lots of other reasons why we choose not to be vulnerable, but I think the real question is, how do we even actively begin to engage in vulnerability? How do we do that?
I mean, primarily you got to be willing. In your relationship, you should be willing to improve your relationship at all times. So if you're willing to share how you feel, no matter what, and I don't mean ODing and attacking your partner. That's not what I mean.
Sharing how you feel, no matter what, as long as it is in love.
Yeah.
Not everybody needs to know.
Don't attack.
Don't attack.
It should be safe for everybody, not just you. So if your vulnerability is attacking someone else, you're not being vulnerable. You're literally just attacking someone else.
You have to speak from the I perspective to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think I cut you off in the middle of your sentence.
No, it was hopeful. Being present and responsive is a part of being vulnerable.
I'm not always great about this.
Me neither.
That means that you have to let your partner get everything out that they're saying before you jump in and respond. Being patient, because you never know what's coming next. And I think some of that is just about developing some community norms in your relationship.
Yeah.
Maybe for you that means counting to 20 before you respond. Stop thinking about what it is you want to say next.
Process what was just said.
Try to maybe repeat back. So I'm hearing you say, tell me if I'm wrong. Really allowing the person to feel heard.
Yeah. Also, slow down. Try to understand what you're feeling and thinking when you're being vulnerable, because you don't want to send a jumbled message out and then they're like, they take what you said and they internalize it and they understood what you said, but then you're like, you come back 2 days later and like, that's not what I meant. And they're looking at you like, what am I supposed to do with that?
I'm not good at this either.
No?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
It's something I'm still learning. And not just in my personal life, at work. I can't tell you how many times I've been like, man, I should have slowed down before I responded. Needed to take a step away from that one.
Yeah.
And sometimes being vulnerable is simply saying, I recognize that I was hasty, or I recognize that I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's plenty of times where I said that. I was bugging. Plenty of times. I be bugging. Y'all know
that. Say what you need, not what you don't like.
That's big. I don't know if people realize how important it is to that they'll say, I don't like this or I don't like that, is not as effective as I really enjoy this thing or I really need this thing in order for this to work well.
So this is interesting. I don't think I'm great at this either. We were talking about earlier this weekend, me hearing something in what you said and me hearing it as
feisty. That was the word.
Feisty.
I remember that one. Why your response is so feisty? I said, I'm taking the garbage out. What do you mean? Spicy? What was feisty?
But even earlier today, critical. These are words that I'm hearing, that I'm saying, that I'm hearing from him. As opposed to saying, we're in a slightly different season in life right now. And with that, as opposed to saying, I may need you to be a little bit more sensitive. That'd be a second fine. I may need you to be a little bit more sensitive. Or I may need you to just soften the way you say some things to me right now. That's the space I'm in. Which is different, right? Me accusing him of being feisty or critical is a fight. Yeah. As opposed to, I may just need something a little different from you right now, and I'm not sure how to get that. But some of this is a little triggering for me for the season we're in.
But also, feisty and critical were two things I was called, and I didn't fight. I wanted to understand.
Yeah, you were really good about that. You're for growth. You're growth.
I'm getting somewhere.
You are way faster than me.
I didn't say that. I'm trying to catch up still. As far as actively engaging in vulnerability, don't expect your partner to understand everything immediately. I'm trying to get better at this. Because it's like, if I explain something to you and I feel like you get what I'm saying, somewhere in my brain it's like, well, you should change right now, and that should be it. There should be no more further conversation about this because you heard it, you understood it, and now you should change. do it now, immediately. And I consider myself patient, but not when it comes to that.
You know, I didn't know that about you.
You're welcome.
We've been together for 13 years, married for 12. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We've said this before, but you have to be honest with yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
And just be honest with your partner about your weaknesses. I am short-tempered, impatient. There are days that I just have zero capacity for frustration. Zero. My day has drained all of the emotional capacity from me, and I just don't have any left. People cannot read your mind.
No.
And it is fine to say, my love, I'm sorry. I don't know if I can give you what you need tonight. My reservoir is drained. I really need to replenish. I want to give you what you need, but you got to give me some time to refill. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be okay in your space, because there should be other times where
Yeah.
the opposite is true, right? And you have reserves.
There should be understanding where, I mean, that shouldn't be every single day. If that's every single day, you need a new relationship, both of you. There's a problem. There's a problem.
Or you should seek a therapist, maybe, so
Yeah,
that you
try
have
therapy.
another way to replenish, or you should find some activities to replenish throughout the day. That should
But if
not
I'm
be every
coming home
day.
every day and I'm like, I can't do it today, I don't have the capacity to deal with you today every day, there's a bigger problem.
That's an
there.
imbalance in your
That's
relationship.
not right.
It's unfair.
Yeah.
It's very unfair.
Keep that in mind. If that's where you are, therapy can help.
Meditation.
Also, look at your relationship and see why you feel this drained all the time, because it may not be the right relationship for you. Because I try to make sure that I can help with the replenishment. I know I can't give 100% of the replenishment, but I try to help where I can. I know she does the same for me, and that's healthy. There's a balance there. But if it's just me constantly, I'm trying to replenish, and she's like, I'm gonna keep taking this replenishment, and you figure out what you gotta do for yourself. That's not balanced.
That's fact. And I have been back in the office recently, and it's probably been a little imbalanced for the past 3 weeks.
I don't think so. I think you've been really good about checking on me and making sure my mental is good, that I'm resting, that I'm taking, like, you made me take a Sabbath. That was great.
I did make him take a Sabbath.
And
if you guys are not taking a Sabbath, we should have a conversation about the biblical understanding of Sabbath. It is fantastic.
You need to get a Sabbath.
If even God needed to rest, you too should rest. But
Yeah.
we'll come back to that in a different episode.
That's life changing. But you've been really good about making sure that I'm taking care of it.